I sound burnt.
All right, so we're gonna look at chapters 30 to 33 in Ernesto's Che Guevara, or however you say it. And here we have a section from Our Lord of the Earthquakes chapter, which is chapter 30. And as we have seen right here, the first quote shown, the violent red of the flowers, the intense bronze of the Lord of the Earthquakes, and the silver altar they carry him on lend, the procession, the impression that it is a pagan festival. This feeling is intensified by many coloured clothes of the Indians, who wear for the occasion their best traditional costumes in expression of culture or way of life, which still holds on to the living values. This section, we feel, shows the beauty of their discovery of the Indian culture, and really that use of the red flowers and their violent nature emphasises that.
I'm happy you said that, Alex, because just reading through again, it shows very strong emotions to the way the Indian people carry themselves in just everyday life. So the feeling is intensified by the many coloured clothes of the Indians who wear for the occasion their traditional costumes. It just gives me a personal image of very bright colours of just traditional Indians. You know the way?
The connection back to the roots of society.
Yeah, it's just a beautiful image that he gives us in this first chapter, or first entry, actually, considering this is a memoir and not a novel.
And also, the second quote in there as well really emphasises their Indian nature, I guess.
Yeah, he is slightly stereotyping, but he is stereotyping in order to give us a better, more vivid image
of these individuals.
Indians.
And I really think that helps with the story. So we might move on to the next quote now. Which sort of one sentence starts on here. And we can see in this, again, it's more just talking about him giving us further images of what he's seeing and the people that are being sort of surrounded by this Indian culture that don't seem to fit in, when this is sort of, I guess you could say, a reverse of their typical lifestyle, where they would not see maybe as many Indians and there would be more of the sort of European people in their life.
It's a very good point. They are in this entry seen as a minority on the island, which, I mean, him using his more vivid images shows that he's definitely out of sorts in the kind of clothes that he is wearing.
Yeah. So I think that's a good chapter to sort of start off this section, just to give us some more images, and I think we'll head on to the next chapter in the next part. Right, so we're into chapter 32 now, and the chapter is called Homeland for the Victor. So there's a few things highlighted in this chapter, and there's some nice metaphors mentioned in this chapter, which sort of focuses on showing the change from the Indian societies and the city to what it is now and how they've sort of been left behind. And this begins straight away on this first page with the first sort of sentence being sort of showing how the society was once such a brilliant and nice place to be, and how it just sort of survived as its own through the just the lives of the Indian people. And it also follows on with the second quote here, with it also pointing out how it is the navel of the world, sort of referring to it being a centre of the world, and somewhere that was once a great society and something that other societies would have tried to achieve to be, and now it is moving on to the other parts, which sort of reflect the state that it has fallen apart and time has taken hold on the society. So in the later part, there is a quote at the bottom: "The brilliant Inca capital passed into its current state, a relic of times gone by." And that's sort of showing now how, that it's been stuck in time, and how that it maybe has been underprivileged compared to other societies, and what Che would have been used to would have been sort of a modern building starting to arise within the areas he's come from, and somewhere that's moving forward with time rather than somewhere that is falling back with time. So I guess that is a new discovery for them. And then over on the other page,
he also talks about the cathedral, which is grounded firmly in the centre of the city. He also uses the metaphor, makes it look more like a fortress rather than a church, which shows the how it was previously very powerful, but now it's turned almost into nothing. And after that, the next quote. What's the next quote? The big chunk.
There's another chunk of that's again sort of talking about the imagery and how that it's changed, and how you can still see some of the past glory, but it's been lost away. And he uses a nice metaphor here by saying, and gold doesn't have the gentle dignity of silver, which becomes more charming as it ages. And so the cathedral seems to be decorated like an old woman with too much makeup. So clearly here, this gives us a very strong image, this use of this metaphor here. And it really puts you into the picture of what is happening and what they're viewing and what they're discovering at this point in time. So that is an interesting statement.
So all throughout this entry, he attempts to, I think, give us an image of the place that he really is. So looking at it, he uses at least 4 metaphors in an attempt to try and provide us with an image of the place that he is at the moment. So we've had the one about the church, then the old woman with too much makeup. He also uses like a medium with which to evoke times past. He also uses that one in order to try and give us a better image of the way of life and the way that this place has been treated. And right at the bottom of the page, it also says, it talks about one of the bell towers of the church being toppled by an earthquake, which he also uses the image and the metaphor of lying like dismembered animals on the hillside. So
I think that is done for chapter 32, and we'll move on to chapter 33 soon.
Ready to explore, there's so much to find. Little lights down, we're going on a mission. Start the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Everyone to rocket, rev it up now.
So, we're back for chapter 32, which is Cuzco Strait. And in this chapter, there's a couple highlighted sections, and I believe, again, we just go along with this journey of their trip in the sort of Indian society. So we start off with the first quote: "As if mixing cocktails, we threw all our impressions together. Our life in those 2 weeks never lost the hobo character which marked our whole journey." So, again, another sort of metaphor here by saying their impressions have been thrown together like cocktails, which I guess from the start they didn't seem very much like similar characters, but at the moment they've sort of blended together, and this style of hobo character, which is emphasizing the fact that they're struggling with the amount of work that they should have put in beforehand, that they've had to live a sort of lesser life than what they could have lived. So I guess that is interesting in this aspect of the story. So then the next page
Talks about the trains.
yeah, it talks about the trains, which I guess the image we've pictured here maybe is a lot like a local Indian train would have been back in those times, which obviously it is because it's in the story, but showing the still the racial like divide between people, with the Indians in a reserved only section, which for now's time is odd because with all these changes, which
You can both sit next to them on the train if you want to.
so so continuing on with chapter 32, so yeah, we've gone through that section of that the smell of cow shit is ever more pleasant than the human version. So clearly showing the struggles that these Indian people live through, and something that Che was not used to coming across with his university lifestyle, I guess, and not really having to see these underprivileged citizens.
He also uses the, just after the highlighted quote there, the somewhat animal-like concept the indigenous people have of modesty and hygiene means that irrespective of gender or age, they do their business on the roadside. This also shows that they are discriminated against no matter what. I mean, it's the way they are, but the white people do not care.
Yeah, so it's
much.
further instilling that idea that they've stuck in time rather than moving forward. So we've got another quote to go through on the other side. So this is talking about the curator of one of the museums, and him speaking to them about the splendid past and the present misery and urgent need of to educate the Indians as a first step towards rehabilitation. So this is probably one of the earlier situations where people have realised that there is still this divide, and that they do need to do something about it, and that the Indians are being neglected, and that is shown by them having the limited education, and just the previous parts of this chapter talking about how dirty that they are because they're just living life as if they were still living 150, 200 years ago before they knew anything else. So that's interesting to have someone talk to Che about how they need the help to develop this culture. And I think that's it for chapter 32.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like our equivalent of the stolen generation.
Yeah.
Pretty much is this of the director of the museum talking to them about how they can't have a divide and they need to bring the Indian people up rather than try and accept the original sort of way of life that the Indians had beforehand.
Yeah, so that's an interesting chapter, and we'll move on to chapter 33.
This pitch is going to move around early. Our batsmen, our top order, have to play well. We've got to watch the ball. We've got to let the ball go well. To me, it's disappointing. There hasn't been a fast, bouncy pitch here in Perth for a long time for that contest. Now, for me, it looks a good, flat, dry batting pitch. So if you took the pitch going here.
Okay, so here we go with chapter number 33, Pombo. So as you can see at the bottom, we have a bit of stuff highlighted. Alex, would you like to talk about that one for us?
So this is just, I guess, them going and having a reflecting time, just sort of lying in a field and looking to the sky and trying to picture what they hope to find, which is food, as they've sort of ran out, I guess, and are struggling. So the images are just trying to put some hope in their minds again. Make them feel good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that he describes it just enough for us to get a sort of image, but leaves it enough so we can make our own mind up on what it really looks like.
Yeah.
So I think that he uses that really well.
Yeah, especially with the ordinary food, because ordinary food
is different for everyone that reads the book.
So, he could be thinking of chips and we could be thinking of tacos.
Exactly. Good point.
So next page. So this is just talking about his asthma attack, which is still sort of kind of odd for someone who's going on this sort of journey to run the risk of having asthma attacks. And the way it's we'll leave it and just keep on going, rather as now's time we would sort of stop. You know, you have your puffer, and which is sort of interesting, I guess, for a person on a journey.
I think it just shows the main goal of getting to the destination rather than enjoying the journey, which, I mean, as we know from Outback, is the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, true.
But, yeah.
And I think on the next page we have a big chunk here, which is just sort of talking about the army process for people in Peru, and how there is such a little amount of people that do get into the army, and the way that he describes getting angry by just seeing them with the arm down the bottom, nor marching then stopping at the whim of their boss. They did everything half-heartedly and were enough to make anyone get angry. So that clearly shows how there's he has these. I guess his mind is changing, and something that might have not worried him once before now does, because these people aren't working.
Yeah, in a way, I think it shows a level of maturity.
Yeah.
Someone that is ready to move up within society and start running people rather than being run by someone else.
Yeah, and more worried about others other than himself as well now. So I think
he
that's
also
good.
There's a bit more. It's not highlighted there, but there are some good points. So about they're on the horse, and their guide spoke nothing but the local language, which in a way they seem surprised about. But I mean, that's a bit unusual. But then a bit further down, this lady is trying to get her horse back off him, and he starts treating her like a lower class because they do not speak the same language. So the quote, "Me no want buy, me no want," I kept saying to her, and would have continued in that vein if Alberto hadn't reminded me that our interlocutors were, I don't know, not relatives of Tarzan and the apes. So that's a good point in there.
And so on the next page we actually find out that the horses that they'd been given by the general of the army were actually horses that had been taken from these Indians. And it again shows the fact how they're underprivileged and their rights have been taken away.
Mm-hmm.
And by Che giving them the horses back, I guess it again shows that maturity that he's now developed by seeing that he should actually do good rather than just brush these people aside and pretend that nothing hasn't really happened.
Yeah. And then a bit further down, it has the state of the place they're going to, the leper colony. It says, the general state of the place is disastrous. 2/3 of a small area the size of less than half a block is designated as a sick zone. It also shows that if you get this disease, then get stuffed. You're over there.
Yeah.
You don't matter to us anymore, pretty much, which is a bit of a harsh way to treat it, and also shows levels within society rather than using true character.
And again we see this later down as the girl they're talking to breaking down, crying inconsolably, describing her life as a cavalry, a living hell. So again, the metaphor there showing how people within this hospital and area really just have no hope and live a poor life, and they don't really want to live it, and they want help, but there's just not the resources to be able to get the help.
Yeah, and also right at the bottom, Sarah talks about how she was given the news that she'd developed this sickness, and that they just sent her on her way after telling her rather than helping her to get into a place like this or in a recovery or anything.
So we'll move on to the next page of this chapter. I think Andrew has some other stuff at the top that isn't highlighted.
So the top of the quote goes from the bad news being given, and they did end up saying they'd send it to a better place, but this place is actually not better than other society. And so it shows there, again, the levels within society. And it says the hospital in Cuzco was by no means perfect. but it was by no means perfect. The only acceptable thing in this hospital was the drug treatment, which means that they got the drugs but didn't really give them out. They gave them out the right way but didn't track anyone for taking them or didn't help them take them or anything. So, yeah, again, just showing those levels, and Che was obviously a bit distraught by this. So, it's just, again, bringing out his maturity that he has developed. Yeah, and there's also a little bit further down about one person that had developed the disease and asked to be put in a nearby hospital, and the higher people within society said no, and then he ended up dying not long after without treatment, which again shows that if you've got the money, you've got the power. At this time in South America, so.
And then down the bottom there, they're getting shown around a new hospital that is being built for the leper colony, and they've got to try and keep their thoughts to themselves rather than express that the new hospital is just as bad as the old one, really, which again shows how they're stuck in time, just thinking, look, whatever we can do will get us by, but it's not going to work. So, it's interesting that they want to show people, Che, and that what they've done, and as if they're sort of leaders coming into this society from an elsewhere, and which is interesting to find that they are being shown around like this.
It also shows that Che thinks that these conditions are still quite appalling, but these people are extremely proud of it, which also, again, shows levels within society and how it is very dodgy around this sort of time.
So, in the last page on Harambe Traptor, is the last little quote area highlighted here, and this is just talking about how they're taking away the weight from their servant, or what do you call them?
Slave?
Yeah, slave or Sherpa. That's what I was.
Oh, yep.
Sherpa, and how sort of the Sherpa sort of looks at them as if with no emotion and no appreciation of the gesture which has been done towards him, and that sort of shows that his mindset, he may have lost all of his emotions just by the fact that he lives such a harsh life, and even to be helped by someone, he doesn't understand the emotions that come towards with that.
It's again the language barrier coming through, I think, in that little chunk there.
Yep.
The language barrier. You know? So yeah.
So I think that's chapters 30 to 33, and we are happy for you to listen and
please like the video,
subscribe,
give me the thumbs up,
subscribe, and comment on what you want our next video to be.
Thank you very much.